Waiting too long to do things after a surgery or injury is just as bad as starting to do things too early after an injury or surgery in terms of training, in terms of movement. And so what we want to do is do things at the exact time that you're ready to do them, right? Because that is going to be the best solution that we have for what it is that we're trying to do. It's not to wait too long, it's not to go too early, it's to do it when you're ready to do it. If we take into account then how do we evaluate or how do we measure what it is that you're able to do? If we have a given or laid out timeline on which we do things, that given or laid out timeline is based off a large massive number of people, and this is the average of what has been done with that large mass of people. So on average, that makes sense. But when we're working with one individual, it doesn't make sense because that individual is going to present, like if that individual was in the study of the mass of people that we're using for that general timeline, that person could be a little bit above, it could be a little bit below, it could be right on that timeline, it could be way above, way below, right on the timeline, like it could be anywhere within that, right? If we go back to the start where we say like starting too late and starting too early are basically the same thing as it relates to moving, because if you start too late after a surgery or injury, things can set in more than you want to set in, and then that cause problems later in terms of range, in terms of movement, and that can be just as big of a problem as if you move too early, right? So if we look at this, if we're working with an actual individual and not with a mass of people, what we want to do is be able to have a way to measure and have a way to evaluate where it is that they're ready to start at. And so the way that I do that is like what I want to show here is this is an athlete. This was 10 days after a labrum surgery and we were getting into training, and this was us just simply going through some shoulder moves, seeing what it was that he could do. Because understand that the way that we progress that timeline in the manner that the specific athlete is ready for is by slowly asking their body what it's ready and capable to do. Because even on a laid out timeline, there are certain kind of like checkpoints and things that we want to hit as we go through, right? So the way that I want to attack it is like I'm going to start asking the body very slowly early on what it's able to do so that we can then actually use the feedback that it's getting to tell us when to progress so that we're not starting things too early and we're not starting things too late. And the way that we make sure that we don't start things too early is we do stuff like this that is very, 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 very simple, very, 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 very regressed, where you're moving your shoulder. In this case, he's moving his shoulder very slowly through very small ranges of motion, not going into anything that's uncomfortable, just feeling it out. Right, so that ensures that we don't start things too early, because after a surgery, after an injury, like the configuration that this individual has in their shoulder, it's there after the surgery, right? And so it is part of how they express. And so if it's not ready to express something, your body is going to get feedback from that area because it's integrated and it's a part of it, right? That is how your body works, is it provides feedback. So we use that to then determine how we progress as we go. And so this was about 10 days out after surgery, and it was our first day of work or of training. And then this is, I want to show an example of like how much we can do in the first 4 weeks, which would technically be about 5.5 weeks, because we didn't start training until 10 days out post the surgery. But these were slow lowers to slow raises, 30 seconds down, 30 seconds up. He's doing them with weight. You can see he's much more comfortable in the shoulder. This is him getting into a pretty damn good like deep layback position in the external rotation. And then we also have, not that one, we have some positions here where he's holding. He's got some shoulder extension there, dip top, bear crawl holds, and then hangs. So we're starting to load it a little bit here. And this was like a month and 2 days out, where he's going straight up overhead with holding a barbell there for time, right? And so that is an example of the progress that we can make. Now that doesn't mean, right, that is the progress that we have to make with people. And that is my point here, is like, if I show an example like this, that doesn't mean that that's how everyone is going to progress, but it means that it can progress like that, and it's actually best to progress like that if your body can. Because if we were to take this athlete and we were to hold him back longer than he needs to be held back, that can present the same amount of issue, because now things set in more, and it's harder to achieve that full range. It's harder to access that if it's allowed to set in. If it's allowed to set in without you asking it to move and asking it to be used, right? So just understand that there's both ends of that spectrum. We can enter too early, we can enter too late, and all we want to do is enter on the correct or at the correct time period, and we can use how your body is presenting in order to do that.